You know that feeling when something seems off, but you can't put your finger on it? That's exactly how I felt the moment my brother announced his engagement. I should have been thrilled. Instead, I felt a chill run down my spine, like the story wasn't mine to tell, and I was about to become a character in someone else's twisted play. When my brother, Julian, dropped the news, we were sitting around our parents' dining table on a Sunday evening. He had that glow in his face, wide smile, sparkling eyes, his hand resting over his girlfriend's. Except she wasn't just a girlfriend anymore. She was Lena Caraway, and apparently, she had said yes 2 weeks earlier while they were away on some cabin getaway. I remember my fork clinking against my plate when he said the word engaged. I'd always pictured this moment differently, like he'd tell me in private first, maybe even ask for my help in planning the surprise. After all, I wasn't just his sister. I was his best friend growing up. But no, this was the first I heard of it, delivered in one grand announcement like we were all audience members waiting for a curtain to rise. Congratulations, I forced out, plastering a smile. And I meant it for him. Julian deserved happiness. But Lena's gaze, sharp and calculating as it swept across me, made my skin prickle. Julian reached into his pocket then, pulling out a little white envelope. He slid it across the table toward me. I was hoping you'd be my maid of honor. The words should have hit me like confetti. Instead, they landed heavy. I glanced at Lena. She was still smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her nails drummed lightly against the tablecloth, as though waiting for something. Waiting for me to mess up, maybe. Of course, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She tilted her head, her perfectly styled hair catching the light. That's sweet. I was actually thinking my best friend, Serena, would do the job. But hey, if that's what Julian wants, she let her sentence trail off like a dangling knife. The air in the room shifted. My parents exchanged a look, my mom biting her lip. Julian frowned, squeezing Lena's hand. We've already talked about this, he said softly. I kept smiling, but inside, a storm was brewing. The weeks that followed were nothing like I'd expected. Instead of being swept into the excitement of wedding plans, I found myself pushed to the margins, erased in small, deliberate strokes. The group chat was made without me. I found out only when Julian accidentally mentioned something about the color scheme Lena sent yesterday. When I asked, Lena replied, "Oh, sorry, we thought it'd be easier with fewer voices." Fewer voices. At the bridal shop, she forgot to tell me about the fitting until the night before. I scrambled to rearrange work, only to arrive and find Serena already there, lounging on the couch like she owned the place. Lena squealed, hugging her tightly, spinning her around like she was the sister, while I stood awkwardly by the door holding coffees no one wanted. Then came the bachelorette party planning. That's when the mask truly slipped. Lena called me late one night, her voice syrupy sweet. "Listen about the trip, we're going to the lake house, but there aren't enough rooms. I figured you wouldn't mind sitting this one out. You'll still be maid of honor, of course. Just, in title." The silence on my end must have been deafening, because she quickly added, "Don't take it personally." I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to call Julian right then and there. But instead I said, "Sure. No problem." Because sometimes silence is sharper than words. And I wasn't about to play my cards too early. That night, staring at my ceiling, I made a decision. If Lena wanted a game, she'd get one. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. I didn't sleep the night Lena told me to skip the bachelorette. My ceiling fan hummed like a metronome, ticking through the hours as I replayed her voice in my head. That saccharine sweetness. That barely concealed triumph. I kept asking myself, why does she want me gone so badly? Julian and I had grown up inseparable late-night video game marathons, sneaking out for midnight diner runs, covering for each other when one of us screwed up. He was more than my brother, he was my anchor. And now Lena was working overtime to cut the rope. By sunrise, my anger had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. If she wanted me out, she had a reason. And I was going to find it. The opportunity came faster than I expected. 3 days later, I stopped by Julian's apartment to drop off a box of our childhood stuff Mom had found in the attic. Old yearbooks, Pokemon cards, the embarrassing middle school zine we made. Julian wasn't home yet, but Lena was. She opened the door in yoga pants and a designer hoodie, her hair in a casual bun.
Oh,
It's you. Her smile didn't even try to reach her eyes this time. I held up the box. Just some things for Julian. She shrugged, stepping aside. You can leave it in the living room. The apartment was spotless, as always. But when I set the box down, I noticed something odd. Lena's phone, buzzing on the counter. The screen lit up with a message. From Serena. Don't forget, you promised I'd be the real MOH. She's just the decoy. Can't wait till we tell her. I froze. My chest tightened, blood rushing in my ears. A decoy. That's what I was to them. Lena snatched the phone up before I could react, locking it with a practice flick. Her eyes darted to mine, searching my face for any sign I'd read too much. I smiled. Cute case. She blinked.
what?
Your phone case, I said, pointing at the glittery cover. It's cute. For the first time since I'd met her, Lena looked unsettled. And that's when I knew I had leverage. I wasn't about to confront her head-on. Not yet. I needed proof. So I started small. I kept every text Lena sent me, no matter how petty. I saved screenshots of group chats she forgot to add me to. Julian sometimes forwarded them to me without thinking. I even installed a call recorder app after Lena phoned one night to clarify that she'd chosen the bridesmaid dresses without my input because, quote, you don't exactly have taste. But the real jackpot came from social media. Serena wasn't subtle. On her private Instagram, which I could see thanks to a mutual friend request she never bothered to decline, she posted stories constantly, captioning photos with things like, bridesmaid duty turned maid of honor duty, can't wait for the big day. One night, she even uploaded a boomerang of Lena trying on a veil, both of them laughing, with a caption. She finally admits it. MOH switch complete ring sparkling heart hashtag Sora not sorry. My hands shook as I screen recorded it. They thought they could erase me quietly. They had no idea I was building a case file. Julian noticed something was off. Why have you been so quiet lately? He asked one evening when we grabbed coffee. His voice carried that brotherly concern I knew so well. I wanted to tell him everything. To shove the screenshots in his face and scream, look, she's betraying me. But I didn't. Because I'd seen the way he looked at Lena, like she hung the stars herself. And if I came at him without airtight proof, he'd only see jealousy. So I smiled, stirring my latte. Just work stress. He frowned, not buying it completely but didn't press. That night, guilt gnawed at me. I hated keeping secrets from him. But if I wanted the truth to land, it had to land like a meteor. Undeniable, scorching, impossible to ignore. The next major break came by accident. I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw a tagged photo of Lena at a bar, except Julian had told me she was working late that night. In the photo, she and Serena were clinking cocktails, leaning close, laughing. Normal enough. Except the caption from another friend read, wedding schemers in action. Y'all are ruthless face with tears of joy hashtag Team Serena. My stomach dropped. Wedding schemers? I clicked through the album, zooming in, studying every detail. That's when I noticed Lena's left hand. Her engagement ring was off.
Why?
The thought hit me like a freight train. She didn't want anyone at that bar to know she was engaged. I grabbed my phone and called Julian. Hey, where's Lena tonight? I asked casually. Still at work, I think. Why? Just wondering, I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. When we hung up, I stared at the photos again. My heart hammered. This wasn't just about the Maid of Honor role anymore. Something bigger was hiding under the surface. 2 days later, it got stranger. One of Lena's bridesmaids, Alyssa, a quiet girl I barely knew, pulled me aside after a cake tasting session. Hey, she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. I don't know you well, but be careful. My pulse quickened. What do you mean? She hesitated, then lowered her voice further. Lena doesn't want you here. She keeps saying you'll ruin things. And Serena, she's been bragging that the MOH title is basically hers now. I already knew that part, but hearing it from someone else made my skin crawl. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Alyssa bit her lip. "Because it's not right. And because—" She glanced toward the door, where Lena's laughter rang out. "You're not the only one she's screwing over." Before I could ask more, she slipped away. By now, my evidence folder was thick. Screenshots, recordings, tagged photos, whispered confessions. But I still didn't have the smoking gun. That came one night when Lena herself handed it to me. She called, her voice tight. "Julian wants you to come over tomorrow."
Don't.
"I'll tell him you're busy. We need to make this easy." I hit record. "Easy for who?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "For everyone," she snapped. "You're not Maid of Honor material, okay? I don't trust you not to embarrass me. Serena is better. Julian will understand eventually." My chest ached, but I smiled into the silence. "Sure, Lena," I said softly. "Whatever you think is best." When the call ended, I sat there staring at the waveform recording on my phone. My hands trembled as I saved the file into the growing archive labeled Project Firestorm. Because that's what it was going to be, a controlled burn. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to burn down her facade with cold, undeniable truth. I don't think I've ever been more calm in my life than the moment I decided to destroy Lena's little scheme. Anger is hot, messy, it makes you reckless. But what I felt wasn't anger, it was icy, calculated clarity. The kind of calm you only feel when you know exactly what needs to be done and exactly how to do it. The first step was simple: build allies. I knew if I was the only one pointing fingers, Julian might dismiss me as overreacting. But if others saw it too, if the truth came from more than one voice, he'd have to listen. Alyssa was already halfway there, her whispered warning echoing in my ears. So I reached out to her. We met for coffee in a quiet cafe downtown. She looked nervous, fiddling with her straw, her eyes darting around like Lena might pop up from behind the counter. When I told her I had proof, screenshots, recordings, posts, her shoulders sagged in relief. "I knew I wasn't crazy," she whispered. She confessed that Lena had been using her, too, making her pay for little things, mocking her behind her back in the group chat she wasn't supposed to see but accidentally did. "She's cruel," Alyssa said, her voice trembling. "Everyone thinks she's perfect, but she's not." She trailed off, shaking her head. That was all I needed to know. Lena was spreading her poison in every direction, not just at me. That gave me leverage. I started slow. Every time Lena texted me something cutting, I forwarded it to Alyssa. When Serena posted another smug story about being the real Maid of Honor, I shared it with her. Piece by piece, Alyssa became my silent partner. She even admitted she was willing to back me up when the time came. The second step was timing. I couldn't just dump everything in Julian's lap. Lena had him wrapped around her finger, and if I moved too soon, he'd side with her. No, I needed to wait for a moment where the truth would land hardest, when it couldn't be swept under a rug. Weddings have plenty of high-stakes events: rehearsal dinners, family gatherings, final fittings. I decided the rehearsal dinner would be my battleground. Everyone important would be there: family, friends, even the bridal party. If I dropped the truth then, it would echo in every direction. The third step was presentation. Screenshots and recordings were good, but I wanted more than words. I wanted faces, voices, undeniable proof. That's when I started compiling everything into one single, devastating package. I spent late nights at my laptop, stitching together screenshots into a timeline, labeling them with dates and times. I clipped audio recordings into neat little sound bites. Lena's voice, dripping with disdain. "You're not Maid of Honor material." Serena's laugh in the background of an Instagram video. MOH switch complete. A text where Lena wrote, "She's too controlling. Serena will do better." Another where Serena responded, "Don't worry, she'll fold. She's too weak to fight." Every time I listened, my stomach twisted, but my determination only grew stronger. Still, there was one piece missing. Proof Lena wasn't just scheming about the wedding, but maybe lying to Julian about bigger things. That's when the bar photos haunted me. Why take off the engagement ring? Why lie about working late? I needed answers. So I followed her. It felt wrong at first, like I'd crossed a line, but the moment I saw her walk out of her office building with Serena instead of Julian, laughing like they'd just gotten away with something, my guilt dissolved. They headed to a wine bar and I trailed them, keeping a safe distance. Inside, they ordered bottle after bottle, clinking glasses, leaning in close, giggling. And then I heard it. Serena's voice, loud enough to carry across the chatter. "He's never going to figure it out, is he?" Lena smirked. "Not if we keep it this way. He's so gullible." My pulse hammered. "Figure what out?" I strained to listen, but their voices dropped, lost in the crowd. I wanted to scream. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. Lena without her ring, Serena practically draped over her shoulder, both of them grinning like they owned the world. That night, I added it to the file. I didn't know exactly what they were hiding, but the seed of doubt was there. And if I showed Julian, it would sprout. The more I planned, the calmer I became. It was like arranging pieces on a chessboard. Every move Lena made, I countered silently, storing it away. When she sent out group messages without me, I archived them. When she whispered to Julian that I was too busy to help, I wrote down the dates and times, matching them against messages where she told me not to bother showing up. By the end of the month, I had a war chest of evidence that painted her exactly as she was. Manipulative, deceitful, cruel. But the best part? She had no idea. She thought I was folding. She thought I was out. She'd smile at me at fittings, her eyes glittering with fake kindness. She'd pat my hand and say things like, "Don't worry, we'll find something you're good at. Maybe handling the guest book?" Serena would smirk behind her, whispering loud enough for me to hear, "As long as she doesn't screw that up too." And I would smile back, biting my tongue, hiding my satisfaction. Because every insult was another nail in her coffin. The closer we got to the rehearsal dinner, the more restless I became. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Julian. He deserved to know the kind of woman he was marrying. And I was the only one who could show him. Still, there were nights when doubt crept in. What if he didn't believe me? What if he thought I was just jealous, trying to sabotage his happiness? The thought kept me up at night, gnawing at me. But then I'd replay Lena's voice in my recordings, that cruel tone, and the doubt would evaporate. This wasn't about jealousy. This was about truth. 2 days before the rehearsal, I made my final move. I rented a small projector from an electronics store, tucked it into my car, and loaded my entire file onto a USB drive labeled simply, Lena. The night before, Alyssa came over. We sat on my bed surrounded by open laptops, my walls glowing with screenshots as I rehearsed the sequence. She watched, wide-eyed, her hand pressed to her mouth. "She's going to lose it," Alyssa whispered. "Good," I said. "Julian's going to lose it too." I paused. The thought stung. I didn't want to hurt him. But better a broken heart now than a lifetime chained to Lena's lies. When Alyssa left, I lay awake staring at the USB on my nightstand. Tomorrow, everything would change. I didn't know how Julian would react, or what fallout would follow. But one thing was certain. By the end of that night, Lena's perfect smile would crack wide open. The rehearsal dinner was held at a country club Lena had insisted on. All white tablecloths and chandeliers that glowed too brightly, like they were meant to blind you into believing everything was perfect. I arrived early, USB tucked in my purse, projector stowed in my car, my pulse steady even though my stomach churned. This was it. Julian greeted me with his usual warmth, hugging me tight. For a moment, I almost faltered. He looked so happy, his eyes lit up when he talked about the wedding, about how everything was finally falling into place. I hugged him back, swallowing the ache in my throat. He doesn't know. Not yet. Lena swept in behind him like she owned the air itself, Serena at her side. She looked stunning, of course. Long silk dress, hair pinned like a queen's, smile sharp enough to cut glass. She kissed Julian's cheek, then turned to me. "You made it," she said, her tones syrupy sweet. "Of course," I replied, smiling just as sweetly. Serena smirked at me, whispering something in Lena's ear. They both giggled. My fingers twitched, itching for the USB. The evening unfolded in a blur of small talk and clinking glasses. People toasted to love, to family, to new beginnings. I laughed when I needed to, kept my mask firmly in place. But underneath, my mind ticked like a countdown clock. When the time for speeches came, Lena practically glowed. She went first, talking about how much she loved Julian, how thankful she was for his family, how excited she was to gain a sister. She even looked at me when she said it, her smile full of daggers. Everyone clapped, none the wiser. Then Julian spoke, his voice cracking with emotion as he talked about Lena being the love of his life. My chest tightened. He believed it. He believed all of it. And I was about to shatter that. Finally, it was my turn. I stood, my legs steady, my voice clear. I just want to say a few words. Everyone quieted. All eyes turned to me. I smiled, scanning the room, letting the moment stretch. Julian, you've always been my best friend. We've been through everything together. And when you told me you wanted me as your maid of honor, it meant the world to me. I paused, glancing at Lena. But apparently, not everyone felt the same. A ripple moved through the room. Lena's smile froze. I reached into my purse and pulled out the USB. I think it's time we all saw the full picture. Before anyone could stop me, I walked to the back of the room, plugged the projector into a socket, and connected the drive. The screen flickered to life against a blank wall. At first, it was just screenshots. Lena's texts, "She's too controlling. Serena will do better." Serena's replies, "Don't worry, she's weak. We'll make her irrelevant." Gasps filled the room as slide after slide flashed by. Then came the recordings. Lena's voice rang out, cruel and unfiltered. "You're not maid of honor material. Serena is better. Julian will understand eventually." People shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between Lena and Julian. Julian's face drained of color. But I wasn't finished. I let the Instagram stories play, Serena boasting about being the real MOH, laughing with Lena about this switch complete. Their smug faces filled the screen, undeniable. And then the photo, the one from the bar. Lena without her ring, Serena draped over her, the caption, "Wedding schemers in action. Y'all are ruthless." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Julian stood, his hands shaking. "Lena, what is this?" His voice cracked. Lena shot to her feet, face flushed. "This is manipulation. She's jealous. She's trying to ruin everything." "Jealous?" I said evenly. "Then explain your own words, Lena. Or Serena's." Serena stammered. "It was a joke." "A joke?" I cut in, my voice rising. "A joke to erase me from my own brother's wedding? A joke to lie to his face about where you were, about what you were planning? Because if that's a joke, it's a cruel one." Murmurs rippled through the room. My parents looked horrified. Alyssa caught my eye, giving me the smallest nod. She knew this was the truth. Julian turned to Lena, his face twisted in pain. "Tell me she's lying. Tell me all of this isn't real." Lena opened her mouth, but no words came. Her eyes darted to Serena, desperate. That silence was louder than anything. Julian stepped back like he'd been struck. "You've been lying to me." His voice was raw, broken. Lena reached for him, but he pulled away. "No, Julian, please, it wasn't like that." But it was too late. The evidence was on the wall for everyone to see. Serena muttered something under her breath, trying to shrink into her chair. Lena's mask cracked, her voice rising, desperate, angry. "You don't understand. She was never supposed to be maid of honor. She doesn't belong here. She's just your sister." "Just my sister?" Julian snapped, his voice like thunder. "She's my family. The one person who's never lied to me. And you've humiliated me in front of everyone I love." Lena froze, realizing too late what she'd just admitted. Julian ran a hand over his face, trembling. "I can't do this. I can't marry someone who does this." Gasps erupted. Serena's face went pale. Lena's eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like she could still salvage it. "Julian, no, please, we can fix this." But he was already walking out. I followed him, my chest aching. Julian. He stopped in the hallway, leaning against the wall, his hands pressed to his face. For the first time in years, he looked small. Broken. I didn't want to believe it, he whispered. I thought you were just jealous. But seeing it, hearing her, he shook his head. How could I have been so blind? I put my hand on his shoulder. You loved her. That's not blindness, that's trust. She just didn't deserve it. He turned to me, eyes wet. Thank you for showing me, even if it hurts. We stood there in silence, the noise of the shocked guests muffled behind us. Inside, I knew everything had changed. The wedding was off. The truth was out. And Lena's perfect world had finally crumbled. The days after the rehearsal dinner felt like walking through the wreckage of a storm. Everything was quiet on the surface, but underneath, the ground was still trembling, pieces still falling. Julian stayed with me that first night. He showed up at my apartment with a duffel bag, his eyes hollow, his hands still shaking. He didn't say much, just collapsed on my couch and stared at the ceiling like he was waiting to wake up from a nightmare. I covered him with a blanket, sat beside him, and we didn't speak for hours. Just silence. Just the sound of him trying to breathe through heartbreak. The next morning, my phone blew up. Missed calls from Lena, texts from Serena, even a few from mutual friends who couldn't believe what had happened. Half of them demanded explanations. The other half called me dramatic. A few even begged me to apologize to Lena and smooth things over. I ignored them all. But Lena wasn't about to let it die quietly. By noon, she'd posted on Instagram a photo of her crying with the caption, "When jealousy destroys family's broken heart." Comments poured in, sympathizing, calling me toxic, painting me as the villain. Serena followed it up with a post of her own. People can't stand to see others happy. Sad. I screenshotted everything and set my phone down. Let them play their game. They were screaming into the void, trying to control the narrative. Meanwhile, I had the one thing they didn't. The truth. Everyone who had been at the dinner had seen it with their own eyes. No Instagram caption could erase that. Julian didn't leave the apartment for 2 days. He sat with his coffee mug, scrolling through old messages from Lena, his face twisting every time he found another lie in hindsight. Sometimes he'd laugh bitterly. Sometimes he'd go quiet and just stare at the wall. On the third morning, he finally spoke. I thought I knew her. His voice was rough, like gravel. I thought she loved me. You can love someone and still not deserve them, I said gently. He rubbed his face, shaking his head. She humiliated me. And the worst part is, I let her. I defended her. I thought you were the one being difficult. I sat across from him, my chest heavy. Julian, you trusted her. That's not your fault. She abused that trust. That's on her, not you. His eyes met mine, raw and tired. If you hadn't shown me, I would have married her. The weight of that hit both of us. He could have spent years tied to someone who saw him as nothing more than a gullible mark. But Lena wasn't finished. 2 days after the rehearsal dinner, she showed up at my apartment building. I knew it was her the moment I heard the frantic pounding on my door. I opened it to find her standing there, mascara streaked, hair messy, but still somehow performing. You ruined my life, she spat, her voice shaking. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, Lena. You ruined your own life. I just showed people who you really are. Her eyes flashed. You don't understand. Julian, and he was supposed to be mine. You've always had his attention, and I was supposed to change that. You think you're the hero? You're pathetic. You couldn't stand that he was choosing me. I felt a cold calm settle over me. He chose you, Lena. He gave you everything.
And you chose to lie.
That's why you lost him. Not me. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You think he's never going to forgive me? You think a bond like ours breaks that easily? You're wrong. He'll come back to me, and when he does, you'll be the one left out. I didn't flinch. Then why are you here? If you were so sure, you wouldn't be pounding on my door begging for control. Her face twisted, and for the first time, I saw it. The cracks in her performance. She wasn't untouchable. She was desperate. She left with a final hissed, "This isn't over."
But it was. She just didn't know it yet.
Word spread fast. Family members who hadn't been at the rehearsal called me, demanding to know what happened. Some believed Lena's story at first, that I was jealous, that I wanted to sabotage the wedding. But then they spoke to people who were there, who had seen the screenshots, the recordings, the photos. Slowly, the tide turned. The whispers shifted from poor Lena to poor Julian. Serena tried to keep fighting, posting stories about loyalty and betrayal, but her words fell flat. She looked like what she was, a sidekick clinging to a sinking ship. I even heard through Alyssa that half the bridesmaids dropped out, refusing to support Lena after the truth came out. Julian, though, had the hardest time. Nights were the worst. I'd wake up to hear him pacing the living room, his voice breaking as he replayed memories out loud. That night she said she was at her mom's, she was probably with Serena. That time she forgot our date, she probably didn't forget it all. I wanted to tell him to stop, but I knew he needed to work through it, to see the lies for what they were. Eventually, he sat me down. "I don't know how to move on," he admitted, his voice hoarse. "You don't have to know right now," I told him. "You just have to keep breathing. One day at a time." For the first time since the dinner, he hugged me tight, like he was clinging to the last bit of steady ground he had left. Lena tried to contact him, of course. Calls, texts, even emails. At first, he ignored them. Then one night, he blocked her on everything. When I asked him what made him finally do it, he just said, "Because I believe you now. I see her for who she is. And I'm done." I didn't cry, but my chest swelled with relief so fierce it almost hurt. Weeks passed. The wedding date came and went without a ceremony. Some relatives shook their heads about the scandal, but most supported Julian, telling him he was lucky to have escaped before vows were spoken. As for Lena, I heard she tried to salvage her reputation, spinning new stories, blaming me, blaming Serena, blaming anyone but herself. But without Julian by her side, people stopped listening. Serena faded too, her posts growing bitter, defensive, until she went silent altogether. Julian slowly began to heal. He started going to the gym again, meeting friends for dinner, laughing at jokes without forcing it. One evening, as we watched a movie together, he nudged me and said, "You know, maybe you'll still get to be Maid of Honor someday. Just at a wedding worth standing in." I laughed, the sound surprising me. "As long as it's not Lena's." His smile was tired but genuine. Never again. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Not just for him, but for me too. We'd been through hell, but we'd walked out together, side by side. And if Lena thought she could ever come between us again, she was sorely mistaken. Time has a way of dulling sharp edges, but some wounds don't heal in silence. They heal by being spoken out loud, by being confronted. That's what the weeks after the canceled wedding taught me. It wasn't just about Julian or me, or even Lena. It was about our whole family learning how deception can seep into the cracks of love and almost tear it apart. The first real test came at Sunday dinner 3 weeks after the rehearsal fiasco. We hadn't gathered since that night, and the tension sat heavy in the air. Mom fussed with the roast, Dad poured wine like it was medicine, and Julian sat across from me, quieter than usual but present. When the food was served, Mom finally said what had been hanging unsaid in the air. I can't believe she fooled us. She seemed so nice." "She was nice," Dad said, his fork clattering against his plate. "To our faces. Behind our backs, she was plotting." He looked at me. "If you hadn't spoken up," Julian interrupted, his voice low. "If she hadn't collected proof, I wouldn't have believed it otherwise." I swallowed hard, staring at my plate. For so long, I'd wondered if I was doing the right thing by exposing Lena in front of everyone, if maybe I'd gone too far. But hearing Julian say that made the guilt loosen its grip. Mom reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "You saved him." Julian gave me a small smile, tired but sincere. "She did." We ate quietly after that, the tension thinning, replaced by something steadier, solidarity. But Lena wasn't done trying. A week later, she sent letters. Handwritten ones, like something out of a bad drama. One arrived at my apartment, another at my parents', and one even at Julian's office. They were filled with desperate apologies, twisted justifications, and promises of change. She wrote about how love makes people do crazy things, how she only wanted to secure her place in Julian's life. Julian read his letter once, then tore it in half. "She still doesn't get it," he muttered. "She's not sorry. She's sorry she got caught." We burned the letters in Mom's backyard fire pit that night, watching the flames curl her perfect handwriting into ash. It felt symbolic, like closing a door. Serena tried to resurface too, sliding into group chats, posting cryptic things online about snakes in disguise. But her credibility was gone. Nobody took her seriously. People unfollowed, unfriended, blocked. She went quiet soon after, retreating into whatever corner she belonged in. The bigger challenge was Julian himself. Healing wasn't linear for him. Some days, he'd laugh easily, crack jokes, talk about the future. Other days, I'd find him staring out the window, clutching his phone like he half expected Lena to call. One night, I asked him if he regretted any of it, the engagement, the breakup, the exposure. He was quiet for a long time before answering.
No.
Because it taught me something I didn't want to learn, but needed to. Love isn't about who makes the grandest gestures or who says the prettiest words. It's about who stands by you, who tells you the truth even when it hurts. He looked at me then, his eyes glassy. "And you did that." My throat tightened, but I managed to smile. Always. In the weeks that followed, family members who had doubted me started calling. Aunts, cousins, even an uncle who had originally sided with Lena. They apologized, admitted they'd been swayed by her performance, thanked me for protecting Julian. Each call felt like a small weight lifted. But the true closure came one random afternoon when Julian and I were at the grocery store. We were laughing about something stupid, which brand of cereal was better, when we ran into Lena. She looked different. Hollow. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes thrown together, eyes darting everywhere but ours. For a moment, she opened her mouth like she might start her performance again. But when she saw Julian's face, not angry, not broken, just done, she froze. He didn't say a word. He just took my arm, guided me past her, and kept walking. That silence was louder than any confrontation could have been. She was irrelevant now. Powerless. Outside, Julian exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for months. "That's the last time she'll ever get near me," he said, his voice firm. I believed him. Months later, Julian began dating again. Slowly, cautiously, but with more awareness. He talked openly about trust, about what he'd learned. And though part of me worried he'd get hurt again, I saw something in him I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. As for me, I found my own kind of peace. I realized the Maid of Honor title had never really mattered. What mattered was the bond Julian and I had, the one Lena had tried so hard to sever, but couldn't. We'd survived her games, her lies, her schemes, and come out stronger. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that rehearsal dinner. The way the room went silent, the way Lena's mask cracked in front of everyone. It replays in my head, not like a nightmare, but like a reminder. A reminder that truth has power. That family, real family, can't be replaced by manipulation. And whenever people ask about the wedding that never was, I just smile and say, it was the best cancellation I've ever attended. Because it was. It saved my brother. It saved us. And it proved that no matter how hard someone tries to erase me, I won't go quietly. Thanks for watching this wild story. What do you think? Was I wrong for exposing my brother's fiancée, or did she deserve everything that happened? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next drama-filled tale.